Ring-a-ding-ding, there's the bell. Welcome Rotarians and guests to the Rochester Rotary August 11th Zoom meeting. My name is Ron Lichtel and I serve as the Rochester Rotary Club president. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which
stands
one
nation
under God,
liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Okay. Please join me in reciting the Rotary four-way test of the things we think, say,
or do.
Is it
the truth?
Is it
Fair to all? Will it build
goodwill, better friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all
concerned?
Will it be fun?
Wayne, and will it be fun for all? Mr. David Erdley, would you please lead us in our invocation today?
Yes, let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for this time to gather. We thank you for the technology that throughout this pandemic has allowed us to be a community of Rotarians in our businesses, in our homes, in our places of worship, that we have not been disconnected. In the evening, as we pray this day, we lift up those, Lord, in Beirut, Lebanon, as they recover from the terrible explosion. We pray for the way in which Rotary is part of that response and for the care that's being provided that community even now. Help us to continue to set in front of us service above self, recognizing the opportunities that we have to create healthier and safer communities for all. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Okay. If we have any guests here today, please enter your names, phone numbers, etc. Into the Zoom chat so our membership chair, Stuart Signer, can get all that information and contact you, see how you liked it today. Our 15th person that signed in today was actually David Erdley. Happy Bucks. If there are any Happy Bucks, please go to the chat, put them in, and we'll recognize them. John Somerville had a great weekend with a family in Maryland. That's a little hike. Kathy Lazinski. I'm happy that I will see Rotarians tomorrow. Oh yeah, for the school program. Thanks for all your donations, and basically I'm gonna be there too. Christine Haig, lots of grandchildren in the last few weeks. And we got them pouring in now. Let's see. Janet says, I'm happy that Christine Haig offered her dining room set to my son. Well, that's cool. Rachel, happy we finally got our swing set delivered. Get the kiddos nice and tired out. Yeah, so you get some sleep at night. Tim Duncan, looking forward to seeing my niece this weekend. Hogwash, which is Tom, happy for the good health for my entire family. And Janet again, I'm happy that Paul Haig helped my son with his engagement ring. There you go. Any other Happy Bucks before we move on? Oh, we had a couple more come in. Spees, visited with my girlfriend from 60 years ago. Wow. David Earley, I'm happy that Hap Walton keeps making progress with his PT and hopes to be home soon. Awesome. Jacob Shorkey, I'm happy that our community at Cedarbrook of Rochester is now offering outdoor activities and concerts to our residents. We're going to be hearing from Jacob a little bit later on today, too. Any others? All right, we're going to move on. Birthdays. We actually missed one last week. Pete Hamill, August 9th. So let's all sing happy birthday to Pete. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Rotarian. Happy birthday to you. $5, please.
I forgot that. We had one club anniversary. Samantha, if I can pronounce it right, Weingirter. 1 year with us already. Rotarian of the Week is Roger Berg here. Man, he's going to owe some money. He missed last time. And without further ado, is David Blair here. You're muted.
There, is that better? Can everyone see and hear me?
Mr. David Blair is our sheriff today.
Thank you so much. You know, I have been really, really busy. I don't know who's been following me on Facebook, but I've been working on my closet at home. So if your closet has any clothes on the ground, that is a $5 fine. If you have to do laundry, that's another $5 fine. If it's stacked up over the top of the hamper, like where stuff's kind of falling onto the floor, that is a $5 fine as well. And while we're in the closet, while we're putting stuff away, if you don't have any room for new clothes, that's a $3 fine. If there's stuff in your closet you haven't worn in 10 years, that's another $3 fine. But you know what? It's not just closets that I want to fine people about today. Something's been, grinding my gears, and it's all about where's mine here? It's all about the face mask. You can't even hear anybody when they're wearing these face masks, and it's got me really frustrated. So we're gonna find some face mask wearers here. First of all, Phil Lohman, wearing a Halloween mask around does not count. It doesn't make anyone safer. It's just creepy and frustrating. So it's a $5 fine for you. Tim Duncan, I mean, it's cute that you're, drawing whiskers on your mask. That's just a little tacky. So it's a $5 fine there. Jan was drawing a mustache on hers. I don't find that funny at all. It's a $3 fine though. Let's see, Rachel, the buck teeth that you drew on your mask, those were very frustrating to passersby. So please refrain from that. Kyle, you put fangs on your mask. That's inappropriate. That's a $3 fine for you. And Dave Walker was tweeting about how frustrated he was that his $1 million smile is not visible when he wears the mask. And, that's just a selfish tweet, I think. So that's a $5 fine for you. Also, Christine, the masks do not add 7 pounds. There's no correlation. So stop posting that. No masks add any pounds. It's not like the camera or anything like that. You look fine. Also, if you've realized, anybody wearing a mask, just how bad your breath actually smells, that's a $5 fine if anybody's experienced that. Unrelated to masks, hey, Tim, did you hear about the guy who made a belt out of dollar bills?
Nope, I didn't.
It was a huge waste of money. It's a $5 fine if you laughed or groaned at that. If you've not put any money down into the chat, we want to go down into the chat at the bottom of your screens. Type $5 and hit send. We make some cute jokes to raise money for charity, and this is really important during this time that all Rotarians put that $5, at least $5 in there, and hit enter so that Vince can bill your account. This goes to support our neighborhood organizations. It goes to support our scholarships and all the other great things that the club does. So put it in there, send it in. Thank you so much. Back to you, Ron.
If you haven't noticed, a lot of people are going, rather than doing $5 every time we do this, doing $20 or $25 in. That's what I did. Makes it easy so that I don't get 4 or 5 bills from Vince, which he loves sending those out. I know he does. All right, it's my pleasure today, and actually my first. We're going to induct a new member, Jacob Shorkey. You have been chosen to membership in the Rochester Rotary Club because you manifest those qualities of head and heart needed to serve Rotary and impart the message of Rotary to those with whom you come in contact. I charge you to judge yourself by the Rotary 4-way test and the things you think, say, or do. I wish to impress upon you that you are being admitted not only to the Rochester Rotary Club, but also to a worldwide association of individuals dedicated to the Rotary motto of service above self. By virtue of your membership in this club, you will be welcomed into the fellowship of any Rotary club in the world. And I've used that many times. Been down in Florida, gone to several different clubs. In fact, I ran into Shirley down there when she was on vacation at the club she visits. The honor and privilege of Rotary membership carries with it duties and obligations. You will be expected to attend the club meetings regularly, actively participate in club service, and offer your knowledge, talents, and energy to the club in its effort to serve our community. I now ask all Rotarians and guests to please rise. Jacob, on behalf of the members of this club, I formally admit you to the membership into the Rochester Rotary Club. Fellow Rotarians, I commend to you our newest member, Jacob Shorkey, and charge all of you to welcome him, to engage him in our projects, fun, and fellowship. Let's all give him a warm welcome.
Hi, Jacob. All right,
Thank
Jacob.
you.
Jacob.
Hey,
Jacob.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Jacob, you got the floor.
All
I'd
right.
like to hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you all. So a little bit about me. I am new to the Rochester area. I've been with Cedarbrook just over 2 years now. And as we were coming into the community, we had our marketing trailer on 2nd Street. Didn't have much information about Rochester or how it operated as a community. And it has been such a pleasure working with, the local businesses, the officials, and really truly seeing how a community should be. And how connected it is as well. So I've never experienced that anywhere. Being right next to the OPC and doing sponsorship and events there has been a pleasure as well. And to know, to see all that the city offers the residents and visitors is truly amazing. And I am blessed to be able to be part of that. My motivation of learning more about the club before COVID. I actually had a relationship with Mary Riedinger and also Mary with an E, Miller, and, became very interested in learning more about it. So I've times and just seeing the connection and how inviting everybody was gave me a lot of inspiration. And I look forward to bringing, new ideas and helping any way I can to boost, the Rotary Club. And I didn't know, all that Rotary did and around the world. So I would love to be part of that as well. But just thank you all for welcoming me and making me feel, welcomed and at ease. And I look forward to working with everybody and learning more about you.
Welcome, Jacob. That's awesome you're with us. We need a bunch of young bucks, and we need more women, too. Dave Archibald wanted to talk about youth exchange. Dave, you got about 2 minutes. We're starting to run a little behind because we got some other stuff to discuss. David Archibald.
Dave stepped away. Looks like Dave stepped away.
Missing in
Okay.
action.
Maybe we can
He
circle back.
missed his chance.
All
Was
right.
he on a diet? He looks so thin.
Maybe he just slipped down that chair.
I can kind of talk if you want, David. Youth exchange, we just had our last youth exchange child go back that was the last one that went back. So all of the kids have gone back to their host countries, or not their host countries, but their origin countries. As you know, the youth exchange is not going to happen come this fall, either long-term or short-term. And we're looking, even Rotary is talking about, I don't know, but they're saying even 2 years from now, but then, to me, I got to see if there's going to be a vaccination. But, you know, with all the unrest that's happening around the world, the safety of the child is always premier to us hosting somebody to go out of the country. So that's where we're at. Hopefully when the kids get going back to school, I don't know what's going to happen with the Interact clubs, but we'll be bringing the information back to the club. And so everybody's on board of what's happening. That's it.
Awesome. One short, quick announcement. Basically, we're shooting for September 1st to go back to regular meetings. You'll have a choice. You can still stay Zooming because we're going to have the equipment there available. We're going to go back to Rivercrest. He's got a 40 by 40, 1,600 square foot right outside the room that's covered. We'll have, the food will be basically, you walk up, nobody will be touching any food. It'll be served. We'll have a temperature reading at the door, along with a form you got to just quick fill out, making sure that everybody's safe when they get there. In order for that to happen, we need 30 people that are signed up to go back on lunches. Okay, I have talked to 17 so far. This would help out a lot. If you listen to what I'm going to say, and please go on and text in, let me know which one you're for, and that'll cut down the number of phone calls I'm making. Otherwise, I got a total of like about 110 phone calls to make. First off, if you're saying yes, you would go back on the regular $75 a month. And basically, I need 30 of those a minimum so that we can start going. If you do that, basically September 1st, that will start your $75 a month rather than the 30 we're at right now. I've got 13 already that have said yes. I've had 2 that want to pay as they go because they go out of state and stuff, and 2 that want to stay on Zoom. So please, go in and go into the chat and let me know, everybody that's here, which way you want to go. So you got 3 ways. Go back on it so that you're going to the lunch, or if you don't, that helps the club, which it used to before. Pay as you go or stay on Zoom. All right, Mr. Tim Duncan, you want to introduce our guest speaker?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Today, everybody hear me? All right, good. Today is my pleasure to introduce Miss Nina Jankowski. Nina is an associate attorney at Gianmarco, Mullins & Horton in their business litigation group. Her practice focuses in the areas of insurance, defense and coverage, product liability, employment litigation, shareholder, member, and partnership disputes, and commercial litigation matters. Nina received her Juris Doctor from the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. Nina received numerous academic awards while in law school, including the Dean's List and Book Awards for earning the highest grade in trial practice and small firm law firm program. Nina graduated with honors from the University of Michigan Dearborn with a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice and Psychology. Nina has been selected by her peers as a top lawyer in commercial litigation by D-Business Magazine. She is a member of the Insurance and Indemnity and Young Lawyers section of the State Bar of Michigan, as well as the American Bar Association and the Oakland County Bar Association. Nina will be talking to us today about returning to work during COVID. Please join me in welcoming Nina Jankowski.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you everyone for having me today. Like Tim said, I'm an attorney at Gianmarco, Mullins & Horton in Troy. I'm an employment lawyer, among other things, and I've spent a lot of time over the last 5 months advising clients on COVID-19 related issues. At the start of the pandemic, our firm put together a coronavirus task force. Our content is available on our website. I authored about at least 80% of that content. And I think my slides are going to be up, I believe. Is John helping me with that?
Yes.
Okay. My email is available on the slides if anyone has any questions afterwards. There we go. All right, so before we get started, I just want to make one disclaimer. While your company may or may not be a client of Gianmarco Mullins and Horton, today there is no client-attorney relationship. This is just an informational purpose only. I might make a few recommendations during my talk, but the recommendations are going to be pretty general. They're not tailored directly to your company, and as you'll see, this is a very dynamic process. So if you do have questions, just let me know. With that being said, our topic today is returning to work and protecting the workplace, mainly when your company gets that call that they have a employee that tests positive for COVID-19. So if we can go to the next slide. Yep, the 3 considerations. This is mostly for organizational purposes. We'll discuss briefly developing a response plan, then go into employee protections, and then lastly, the FFCRA, or the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So developing a response plan. Your company should be confident that you are continuing to keep employees healthy and safety during this time. But in order to do so, companies should be implementing a plan that responds to both positive cases and when employees are sick. It's not only a good idea to have a plan, but it's also required under one of Governor Whitmer's executive orders. That order requires a preparedness and response plan that's consistent with the OSHA recommendations, but I suggest that you take one step further and really determine what's feasible for your company, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Your response plan should outline all the preventative measures that the company's taken to ensure the health and safety of the employees. This is going to include things like temperature screenings, social distancing guidelines, any PPE that you've provided to your employees, and then the cleaning and sanitation procedures. You'll also want to develop a plan for when employees are displaying symptoms of COVID-19 or when they test positive. And we're going to get into this a little bit, but one other thing that you should be thinking about is how to deal with employees that have to take time off but don't fall under paid sick leave, which we're going to talk about. It's very dynamic. And so trying to make sure that you're anticipating all different types of events will put you in the best position for when something does arise. And then lastly, communicate the policies to your employees. What you don't want happen is you receive the call that you have the first employee that's tested positive, and your HR department is going nuts because they don't know what's going on. You have employees that are now being told they have to stay home, they're upset. You know, it can turn in very chaotic situations. So if you have the policies in place, if your employees already know about them, you know, it's going to just help the situation as a whole, because it is a stressful time for everyone. Employee protections. So unfortunately, it's been the reality now for just about every business that we're going to get this call that an employee has tested positive. When you're notified that an employee is tested positive, there is now a new executive order that came out on Friday. It's executive order, it's 2020-166. And it requires a couple things. So the first thing it requires is when an employee tests positive, they have to stay home until 24 hours have passed since they last had a fever without any fever reducing medication. 10 days have passed since their symptoms first appeared, or since they were swabbed for that test that yielded the positive result, and any other symptoms have improved. So all 3 of those things have to happen before the employee can return back to work. I also recommend that you have them receive 2 negative viral tests. And I just want to distinguish the viral test from the antibody test. The viral test is what you are testing for the virus. An employer can require an employee to take that test. The antibody test, or testing for the antibodies, an employer cannot require that an employee take that test. So make sure that you understand the difference between the two and make sure you're not requiring employees take that antibody test. And then I also recommend that if they take the 2 negative tests, that they be at least between 24 and 48 hours before they return to work. So take that test, wait 24 to 48 hours, then they can return back. That means, you know, you're just creating less of a risk of spreading the virus, and you know, you don't want your company to be a source of any type of outbreak. So additionally, you have responsibilities to protect other employees that have been in contact with the person that has tested positive. So what you should do is determine whether the employee has had contact with any other employees in your business from the time that they think that they were exposed or when they first developed symptoms. So that includes asking 3 questions to the employee. First, ask whether they believe or where they believe they contracted this virus, whether it was at a grad party, if you know a family member has it. Then determine whether they've been back to work since they were last in contact with that person, and then who at work that they have been in contact with since. And so under this new executive order, the 2021-16, the second requirement of that order requires that any employee that's been in close contact with an individual that tests positive for COVID-19, they now have to stay home as well. And the order defines close contact as being within 6 feet of someone for at least 15 minutes. So if that has happened, then they need to stay home for either 14 days since they have last had contact with that person, or if that person ends up getting a negative test, then they can return back to work. So this second requirement, there's certain industries that it does not apply to. So the healthcare profession, workers in healthcare facilities, first responders, child protective service employees, childcare workers, adult foster care facilities, and correctional facilities. So if your company falls in this exception, I still recommend the 14-day quarantine, again, because you don't want your company to be the source of another outbreak. So, you know, having them stay for another 14 days, then they can return back to work. It's just lessening the risk. And then it's not on this slide, but I just wanted to, while we're talking about this executive order, there's a few more notes that I want to just let you know, because it's pretty new. First, this order creates a new definition of what a principal symptom of COVID-19 is. And it seems pretty broad, and it may have some potential for abuse. If your employees are going to try to abuse it, you know, it's including things like sore throat, not the common, you know, the cough and what we've kind of heard over the last few months of what COVID-19 includes. Right now, the SBA of Michigan is currently working with the governor's office to reach some clarity on this issue. So hopefully we'll have some more guidance in a couple weeks. Second, if an employee under the second requirement is required to stay home after being in close contact with someone who tested positive, the paid sick leave under the FFCRA will be triggered. And we're going to talk about that, but I just wanted to let you know in case you're thinking about that while I'm speaking. And then lastly, there is one more requirement under this new order, is that employers are prohibited from firing or disciplining employees who stay home when either when they do test positive or they're in close contact. Instead, these employees have to be treated like they were taking medical leave under the traditional FMLA. So they just cannot be, you know, you can't fire them for staying home. You can't discipline them in any way. Okay, so getting back to the last point on this slide, you should determine if the positive case is work-related, meaning that the exposure was either caused or contributed to the positive case. And if it is, there are specific OSHA reporting requirements that you have to follow. I'm not going to get into them, but they're available on their website. And it's just reporting requirements. It lays out exactly what you need to do. Go to the next slide. Okay, so the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this by now, and it was enacted early into the pandemic. I won't spend too much time on it, but I do just want to note the distinctions between the two. So there's two types of leave under this act. The first one is the emergency FMLA, which is paid it's paid leave when the employee has any childcare issues. The second is the paid sick leave, which is when they need paid leave for any health related reasons related to COVID-19. The next slide is a little bit more information about the FFCRA. On the left portion of the slide is the FFCRA poster. This poster is required to be posted in a conspicuous place on the business premises. Employees may not know about this new leave law. They may have heard about it. They may not know the specifics. So we recommend, reaching out to your employees, educating them about the available leave, and then providing them with what I call a leave request form. It could be similar to, the leave request forms that you may already have, just indicating why they need this leave. The poster does a great job of identifying the qualifications and how it's paid out. So if you look on the right side, I just kind of blew it up a little bit. The box at the bottom gives the different qualifications. The first one is that subject to a state quarantine order. That was what I was talking about with this new executive order 2021-16. So if someone was in contact with someone that who tested positive, they're now required to stay home for 14 days. They can now be eligible for this paid sick leave. The second one is advised by a healthcare provider. I'm going to get into doctor's notes a little bit, but this is, if you go to the doctor and the doctor is advising that you stay home. Some doctors are not, and so I'll also talk about what to do when you don't qualify for this type of leave. And then third, experiencing symptoms and waiting for, or when you're experiencing symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis. This is when, you may have symptoms of COVID-19, you go and take a test, it takes a few days, your employer tells you stay home, and waiting for the test results. That's when this leave is triggered. So during that time that the employee has to stay home waiting for the test results, they could get the paid sick leave. So the question now comes, what happens when you have a unique situation where the employee does not fall into one of these categories? So what I recommend first is if they don't fall into one of these categories, if they have any PTO or vacation time, see if they can take that first. Another option is unpaid leave. Usually that's not preferred. And then I've also recommended if it's feasible for the company, that they could create a new policy. It'd be like a special PTO related to COVID-19 where they can take paid time. It'd be, paid time related to staying home due to COVID-19. Now, I do just want to note, if they are eligible for paid sick leave, you cannot require them to take a PTO or vacation time before providing the leave. They have to get the leave first. This is for situations where they do not qualify for the leave. And ultimately, whether, if they don't qualify and you're trying to determine whether it's paid sick leave or vacation time, unpaid leave, ultimately it's a business decision. It's not a legal decision. It's based on what's feasible for your company, what your company can afford, and you want to be consistent with, throughout all of your employees. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out what's best for your company. Moving on to the next slide. FFCRA documentation. So this gets back into doctor's notes. Ideally, employees should get a doctor's note if they're recommending self-quarantine or clearing them for work. So that second category of the paid sick leave. But given the circumstances around the pandemic and the demand on the healthcare profession, this may not happen. And I've heard of it a lot where doctors won't provide doctor's notes. The Department of Labor has asked employees to be flexible during this time and consider alternate options if it's possible. An employee experiencing COVID-19 related symptoms and waiting on test results or if tested positive, what I recommend is documenting it according to the IRS guidance. So the IRS guidance is related to how the company can be eligible for the tax credit that's associated with this leave. If you're documenting this leave based on that, I mean, ultimately the company's going to want the tax credit. So documenting it based on that is kind of the best case situation when you can't get that doctor's note. So what that includes is the employee's name, the dates where the leave was requested, a statement related to the reasons that the employee was requesting the leave, any support, written support if that's available, and then a statement from the employee that they're unable to return to work by means of remote working. If the person is requesting the leave based on the quarantine order or a doctor, that name of either the government entity, so if it's Executive Order 2020-116 or Dr. Smith told me I need to stay home, that should be included in this documentation. And the way that this, practically what you can do is just prepare a simple leave request form that includes that information. I recommend that the employees sign it. That gives them a little bit more responsibility to it. Hopefully that doesn't, you don't want employees to be abusing the system, but hopefully that signature will help as well. And if you have any questions or need help preparing those forms, you can just send me an email. So with that, I think my last slide is just a thank you. If anyone has any questions, I can open the floor or we can move on. Again, I really appreciate it.
So I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I noticed in there you didn't talk about taking people's temperature. There seems to be a lot of debate. Some places do it, some places don't. I know when Oakland opens up, we're not going to take people's temperatures, but when I went to the doctor's office yesterday, that was the first thing they did. So is that something that is there debate about that, or is that an accepted practice, the taking people's temperature?
So there are certain industries that require, through the executive orders, that are required to take temperature. So doctor's office, food, I think the grocery industry is still required to take the temperatures. Other than that, it's kind of a business, it's a preference. I know at our firm, we do have to take our temperature when we go in. I've heard that, when you go to get a haircut, you can take it in. The Oakland County order is an old order, and I don't believe they renewed it. I haven't looked at it in probably about a week and a half. But Oakland County at one point was requiring it. I don't believe that's the case anymore.
And then my last question is, you mentioned as soon as you get the test results back and they're negative, you can return to work. But I've had situations where one of my family members took the test. The clinic made a big to-do about how there's a fast turnaround, and it took them 10 days to get her results.
Yes, that is becoming the problem. And I know there's the rapid response versus, the one that takes longer. If the employee takes that, takes the test that takes longer and it takes 10 days, that's when the paid sick leave can then, that's when that's triggered. So they can go on paid sick leave for that time, stay home. If it tests negative, then they can go back to work. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Nina, there was a question in the chat from Vincent.
Sorry. Is it still true that we cannot share with the staff who in the office tested positive to see if there was any direct contact? So that is correct. It's hard because let's say the employee only has contact with a couple people. John Doe tests positive. You don't want to go tell the entire company that John Doe tests positive. That gets into HIPAA issues. But what you want to do is alert the people, talk to John Doe, ask him who he's been in contact with. And then when you go talk to the various employees, let them know that they may have been in contact, and let them know, under HIPAA, we can't tell you who you've been in contact with that may have been, maybe displaying symptoms or tested positive. But that's the way to do it so that you don't run into HIPAA issues. But yes, that is correct.
I have a question as well. You keep mentioning contact and direct contact. Is there like a definition of that? Because obviously, if somebody walks into a building, does that incorporate everybody within the building, or is it everybody within 6 feet, or is there a definition of that?
Yes. So direct contact under the new executive order is you have to be within 6 feet for at least 15 minutes. Okay. So if when if someone tests positive, the whole company doesn't need to shut down. It's just those few people, and that's when you're really gonna have to narrow down who has been in direct contact and for at least 15 minutes.
Okay.
I have a question about masks.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of dispute about when you're wearing a mask, is a kerchief or a veil considered an appropriate face covering? If masks are required, what is the requirement, and what happens if somebody says that they cannot wear a mask for medical reasons?
So the requirement for a face, the orders say just face covering. So I believe that includes, a bandana. Now they have those, they kind of almost look like a infinity scarf, the big ones that you pull up. Those would all be considered a face covering. Unless you're working in the healthcare profession, then those N95 masks are required. When an employee says that they cannot wear a mask that's due to a health concern, that's when you get into the reasonable accommodation under the ADA. So, and it's hard because, we're now required to wear masks. If someone says, I have asthma, I can't breathe with the mask, they need to come to you. They need to let you know, as the employer, you need to, they need to tell you, and then you need to have a conversation with them about what a reasonable accommodation would be. That could be if they can, let's say they just do computer work, maybe putting them in a separate office away from other people. That could be a reasonable accommodation. If they, if it's very severe and they need to telework, then that could be a reasonable accommodation. It's gonna depend on what the, what your company does, what the land, how your office is set up, but you just have to provide something for them. And that's the way that you go about it. Because, if you're sitting at a desk, maybe the door's closed, maybe they can take the mask off while they're working during the day. That might be the best way to handle that.
Is a shield considered a reasonable face covering?
I believe so, yes. We call that enhanced PPE. And that could be a good option. And it would, yes.
Okay. And the other thing is a visitor to the facility. Does the business owner have leeway as to decide whether to admit a person who has a health concern about masks or not, or is there another more appropriate way to handle that?
Well, they are required under the governor's order. So, you've seen the signs. If you don't want a customer coming in, you have a right to tell them they can't come in without a mask. Unfortunately, a lot of backlash happens with it, but you can say that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, I really appreciate you guys having me. And thank you, Tim and John, for your help.
Thank you very, very much for speaking to us today. So
Yeah.
This is really, really good information, very timely. So we appreciate it. Appreciate your time. So, all right. Thanks, Nina.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Nina, for all the information you gave us today. Open our eyes up a little bit. Earlier I talked about Rivercrest. I had 13 people respond. Actually, one of them that had signed up before for pay-as-you-go is now full, so we're at 19 so far. If you could get back to me, anybody that didn't respond, text me or call me, 586-596-2125, and let me know, because we're moving towards it. I got 3 weeks before our first meeting, and I don't have any doubt we're going to hit over 30, which is going to, and then anybody that doesn't show up basically is going to help the club like it used to before. Any other comments or questions that we have right now? Because we're closing to an end. For this meeting anyway. Okay. Meeting is adjourned.